What's up, guys? Alexis Downie here with Icebreakers. As the NHL offseason continues, there's been lots of talk recently about what next season could look like. January 1st is the expected start date. However, on Thursday, the NHL announced the postponement of both the Winter Classic and All-Star Weekend. Over the past week, there's been lots of love pouring in on Twitter following the announcement by Mike Doc Emmerich about his retirement from broadcasting. Doc spent 40 seasons in the NHL and has become one of the very best. I know I will certainly miss hearing his long list of verbs that he used to describe plays, as well as his awesome stories. The Chicago Blackhawks put out a statement to fans last week following some changes to their team in free agency. The organization has transitioned from the term re-win to their version of rebuild. I caught up with Blackhawks Insider Charlie Roumeliotis to talk about the news.
Yeah, I like that the Blackhawks are really trying to be more transparent and open with their fan base and also the media too, right? They want to communicate their message to the media so that they can properly tell the fans what's going on, right? I think the miscommunication a little bit is that I don't think this is a full-on rebuild. Like, I don't think you're going to see the Blackhawks trade a Patrick Kane or a Jonathan Toews. I think they're trying to retool here, rebuild as far as giving their younger players an opportunity like we saw in the bubble with Kirby Dach and Adam Boqvist. So I think they are trying to preach patience here in the long term or in the short term for long-term success.
And you spoke with general manager Stan Bowman on the Blackhawks Talk podcast. He talked a lot about transparent, which you just mentioned, and the path that they're on. In what ways could this really change the viewpoint of the organization if this is done properly?
Yeah, I think back to the New York Rangers letter when they sent that 2 years ago telling their fans, hey, we're going to part ways with guys that have been here with the organization for a long time. And I know it's going to be a bumpy ride, but if you stay with us, the reward is that we hope to be playoff contenders perennially, not just, hey, we snuck into the playoffs and, win a round in a COVID-19 bubble. Like, they want to be at the top of the mountain and they want to stay at the top of the mountain too. So I think they're basically telling their fans, be patient. It's going to be a little bit hard for the next couple of years, but we hope that the reward is we'll be a Stanley Cup contender perennially again.
Absolutely. So from the perspective of the core veterans, how do you think this whole situation could change their game in the coming seasons?
Yeah, I think that's going to be difficult. And we talked to Stan Bowman. He said he had a meeting with the core players, Patrick Kane, Duncan Keith, Jonathan Toews, and Brent Seabrook. All four of those guys, 3-time Stanley Cup champions. And I think it's important that you need to have those guys on board because they set the tone in the locker room, right? So I do think there is going to be a little bit of a disconnect during the season as far as roster decisions, but that's going to be the betterment of the long term. And I think that's what head coach Jeremy Colleton and Stan Bowman are telling these guys, that we're not going to make decisions that will best suit the short term, but we're hoping that in the long term it will pay off. So I think slowly those guys will warm up to it as we get closer and further along into this season.
So with the departure of Corey Crawford, I know that was a big thing for the team as well as fans. Who do you think will fill his role, whether it's next season or the coming seasons?
Yeah, it's going to be really challenging because even when Corey Crawford was or became the full-time starter for the Blackhawks, he had a guy like Marty Turco who was a veteran under him to learn from, right? So the Blackhawks aren't doing that with Colin Delia, Malcolm Subban, and Kevin Lankinen. And those three guys, it seems like, are going to compete for those two spots. And so it is going to be challenging. It's going to be a bumpy ride, and I don't know how it's going to play out, but they also did draft a goaltender in the second round of the NHL draft. So I think they are trying to project long-term, but at the same time, they're going to throw these kids into the fire next season and hope that one of them pans out.
And speaking of the draft and looking at the selections, do you think the team did a sufficient job in acquiring some of those young, talented guys to develop?
Yeah, I feel like the payoff is going to be in several years. It's so different in other sports compared to hockey where, if you watch college football, you watch college basketball, you've seen these players, right? But with hockey, some of these players are playing in Sweden, in Germany, and Switzerland. And so we don't know how they're going to pan out, but I do know that the Blackhawks philosophy has always been, we're going to take the best available player, especially in the first round, and it doesn't really matter organizational need. We just want that guy to be an impact type player in the long term. So I think that's what the Blackhawks hope they got in Lucas Reichel, and also in the second round, the potential starter, the future goaltender of the Blackhawks.
Those were my icebreakers. I'm Alexis Downie. Tune in next time for more coverage of the NHL.